From a vault in the Bowery, which we believe contained John Jay's wife, and from Fishkill, because his parents had, the whole family fled here when the revolution started, and the parents never came back to him. They were buried up there, and we think their remains, but we don't have a complete list of the two vaults that were consolidated into here. In 1815, they set up a deed poll for the cemetery trust with this initial 1 acre plot. The first trustees were John Jay's son, who was running the Jay estate at the time, and one of his nephews. And it specifically stated in the deed poll that there were to be no fences, which is interesting, and we wound up violating that. In 1906, they actually incorporated the Jay Cemetery Corporation. After World War II, they realized.
Do we need to close the gate?
Just keep an eye open. The deer love to run in here,
Oh, no.
eat all this stuff that they can't get to. In fact, Dawn, can you keep an eye on the gate and try to keep the deer from rushing it?
I sure will.
Hey, this is my wife, Dawn. My name is Peter Doane. I'm the president of the Jay Cemetery Board, and John Jay was my great grandfather.
You look like
So in 1946, after my grandmother was a trustee during the war, because the regular trustees were all fighting in World War II, they realized that they were going to outgrow this 1 acre lot fairly quickly, and the Devereaux, who owned the estate at that time, agreed to sell another 2 acres to the family at a really decent price. But the bylaws of the cemetery board say that the money that we maintain is only for maintenance and repairs. We can't do anything else. So my grandmother led a group of family members that raised money and bought the land from the Devereaux and then gave it to the cemetery. So in '46, we grew to just under 3 acres, but that's more than the state law allowed for a private family cemetery. So it took legislation at the state senate to get permission to do that. And Suzanne's grandfather was one of the ones involved in that legislation. And that was also the time, because we knew we weren't going to get any bigger, that we decided to violate the rule about the fence, because there had already been some vandalism. Somebody took a shot at John Jay's grave once when the Supreme Court was in disfavor for something. I'm surprised they haven't tried to get at him again lately.
About when was that, Mr. Doane?
Suzanne knows exactly when. In fact, I think she can even point out the little divot in this monument.
She's all-knowing of all things.
Yes. And the cemetery lane out to the post road was also set up in the deeds and the surveys at that time, because we knew we had to be able, it had always been mentioned, but it had never been kind of laid out exactly how wide. In 1967 was when the Jay estate was broken up into the Barlow Lane development for housing. The 23 acres for what's now the Jay Heritage Center went to the Methodist Church, and the rest went to the Marshlands Conservancy. They let the 12 acres be developed to kind of offset the loss of tax revenue, because they were giving away all this land to nonprofits. And that started the long battle to make sure the Marshlands Conservancy was used for what it was left for, in somebody's will, I'm not sure whose. And others wanted to develop it. At one point, the 23 acres came very close to being developed.
Yeah, blueprint and everything.
Yeah.
Wow. Like 50 townhomes.
Yeah, some famous architect in Chicago had laid it all out.
I think they were going to keep the mansion as like a viewing thing.
Community center.
Yeah, like, come look at this. Which is absurd, yes.
So we dodged that bullet. We dodged the other bullet, and the Nature Center was created in '72, and the cemetery board was asked if they could use the first 400 feet of the cemetery lane as their road. And very wisely, a couple of years later, we set out an easement that explained all that in the county records, because we've had to use that as a reminder not to develop the Nature Center beyond what it is now. And in 1976, the Parsons family, which owns the Lounsbury estate, gave the Marshland Conservancy 27 more acres, and now the cemetery is completely surrounded by Marshland Conservancy. And that's it.
Very easy to get lost in the marshlands.
No, we have all new trails.
Oh, they're new now, okay.
And a map and all the trails.
Wow, that's great.
But feel free to look around. We've placed flags at all the veterans. My great-grandfather was one of the ones that paid to be trained as an officer before America entered World War I. And he got some kind of medal for his service in France.
So are family members still allowed to be buried here? It's still active?
Yes, we've had a few. In fact,
Is it a
you'll
process?
see occasionally you'll see some of these large stone wall stones. That's where cremation urns have been buried, but no monument has been set yet. Our former treasurer there, the former president here, the wife of a former president over there. We've actually had, and over in the new section, we call that the new section. One of the long-time serving secretaries of the cemetery board went to be buried, and they found remains when they went to excavate.
Oh.
So that launched a very extensive ground-penetrating radar survey of the whole place to make sure there weren't any other surprises. But I'm told the headstone for the unknown grave is coming soon, and monument people tell me they have a whole slew of monuments slated to come in November.
I know you guys have the very extensive family tree in the drawing room. So do you all, does the J family keep up as descendants continue to?
I don't. John Du Bois, who was the president before my cousin Theo, I think he kept a website with a very extensive.
Very cool.
And I've tried to get. One of the first things I did was take a picture of all these graves, because some of them are deteriorating fast enough that we may not be able to read them. Although Suzanne told me there's a record at the Heritage Center of what a lot of the early gravestones were.
That is new, 2017.
Yep. That was because there are 2 people on the headstone and 2 people in cremation urns, and after that I had to say no more than 3 cremation urns or 1 coffin in any one plot. It got crowded, and they were digging for this, and they found one of the original walls. So you can see,
And this one is John Doe?
somebody's already poured the foundation for a headstone, but hasn't set the headstone. And I think, if I recall, this lady is doing like everything she can before she dies.
Interesting.
It's-
Okay.
She's not sure anybody's going to know what she wants.
Yeah, I like it.
We had a reservation for that, and they took the spot.
So do you manage all the business side of things too, or do you have somebody else?
No, we have a treasurer.
Yeah.
handles all the finances. The fund started with like $4,000 in the early 1800s.
Wow.
Pierre J., who founded Fiduciary Trusts
Right.
International, I think it is, right? Said, let's park some money in
Yeah.
my new company. And now we've got like over 4 million.
Wow.
The people that are buried here are cremated. Is a board that decides who can come in and not come in? Is it based upon? how do they decide?
Descendants of John Jay's father,
Right.
their spouses and widows.
Okay.
It's written out in the deed poll exactly who's allowed.
And is it paid for by the, or does each person individually
Each
pay?
family pays for the interment, but I had Mary J., blind Peter J.'s wife,
Right.
that gravestone fixed once and it just broken out. She's trying to find blind Peter J.'s headstone, which was right next to me. And we've had John J. and the family vault stone cleaned at least once.
Was that Sarah Danesco?
Now his wife's, we believe, in the family vault. She was in the Bowery vault and was moved up here in 1807.